أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today I'm joined by a very close friend of mine. We grew up together in Mombasa, and although he's a couple of years older than me, but suffice to say, we did a lot together. And I'm so glad to have Mohamed Abbas Virjee here. Assalamu alaikum, Mohamed Abbas.
Alaikum salam, Imranali. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to share your story with us. Really looking forward to it. Inshallah.
Pleasure.
I think you're almost a pioneer in terms of when it came to reciting with a proper Hijazi tune, because we all had this typical madrasa tune or the community tune, but no one really had adapted to these tunes that were being recited by the Qur'an. So I think, yeah, you're definitely a pioneer in terms of reciting with the tune. And then from there were, I think, a lot of us. Then we actually were opened up to this sort of tune and this recitation. And I remember, I think a lot of us, including myself, were copying that tune and tried to recite in that tune because it was very distinct. So thank you for that.
You have been reciting today's tune as well, right?
So initially, yes, and that was actually because of you. And then once you get the exposure of different reciters and different tunes, then you almost come up with an amalgamation of all of them and come up with your own.
Yes, that's right.
So no, that was good. But then, how was it? Purely from listening and then practicing? How would you practice with the tune?
So I think the tunes kind of settled in very quickly, and this is something that we notice with generally with us, the siblings, is that any tune that we'd listen to, we'd pick it up really quick. But I think the advantage was with that is that you could gain familiarity with the surah very quickly and even do memorization very quickly. So I remember with practicing Surah Dukhan, just listening passively to Sudais, Mullah Sajjad Bishon encouraged me to recite Surah Dukhan in Mehfil Zainab by heart. And so I somehow, not even without any effort at the time, just because of the tune, I was able to recite it, just by heart. But I think the problem with that was, the disadvantage was, because there was no the visual cue.
Yeah.
There were very many mistakes when it came to the pronunciation of the letters and, obviously the tajweed, etc. So I remember there was once in Laylatul Qadr, one of the elders came up and said, you made 15 tajweed mistakes. And that was obviously because the hearing was so strong, but it wasn't accompanied with the visual.
Yeah. So I guess because all you're doing is listening to it, there may be some of those stretches that you were not translating in.
Correct. And when Sudais recites, I think all of his recordings are in Haram Tarawih. It's not a studio recording where he's actually focusing on those rules as well. So if he made a mistake, I'd make it with him.
Okay. So, but then going into this whole memorization, that's very intriguing, because normally you wouldn't associate memorization with just purely listening, right? It would be a lot. Yes, listening is a big part of it, but then also following it with the Quran and trying to visualize it and all of that. So I know you've gone on a journey in terms of memorization. How has that gone from that point where you memorized Surah Dukhan to how you're doing it now?
So I think, look, it's still a lot. It's very relying on the listening at the moment, and I think the reason why is because it's very passive, and it's the easiest way to memorize. Whereas with reading, you have to sit with the Quran, and listening, whilst you're driving, you can actually listen. So although this is not an ideal practice, but it's kind of it helps in getting the ball rolling. I think at that time, because of a lot younger and the memory was sharper, listening was really effective. Now that I'm realizing is that I have to, have that visual cue as well
Mm.
to make the memorization effective. So at the moment, what we're doing is, especially with the Sheikh Rasuli's class,
Yeah.
is he asks us different ayat at different parts of the page. So he'd
Yeah.
open a random page and say, "What's the first ayah on the top right corner or on the bottom left?" So he expects us to have a visual cue
Mm.
as well. The other disadvantage that I've noticed with just listening is that if someone asks you a question about hifz without that tune, then I find myself struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were
So
to go into a competition, for example, and
yes, yeah.
the judge
So
had a completely different tune.
yeah, so solely relying on just the auditory cue is not very effective. Yeah.
Mm. So you feel that you've adapted your
Yes, yes,
way of
yes,
memory.
definitely. Yeah. So trying to kind of sharing it 50, probably 50% of each. Yes.
Now, really going on to a very important part and something that I'm actually excited about. I haven't heard your recitation in a long time. And I'd be quite intrigued to see where we've reached. So the last time I heard you was probably Sudais-esque. Now, now where are we at in terms of our recitation?
No, I think Imranali Sudais has invaded the house. He doesn't leave. Even when we want him to, he doesn't leave.
Okay, Bismillah. You are blessing us with the recitation from which passage?
Surat Naba.
Inshallah.
Okay.
We have it on the screen. So, Bismillah. Ready when you're.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون. كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أحسنت. طيب الله أنفاسك. That was really, really beautiful. The other thing that really caught my eye was your ghunnas, especially because you're reciting Sudais S, so you're reciting at a Sudais speed, which is much faster. Like all these Hijazi reciters, the ones who lead the Tarawih prayers, their speed is very very fast, faster than normal 13, I feel. But yet to have that ability to stretch on the ghunnas for 2 counts, was that something that you struggled with, keeping up with the speed as well as making sure that you're stretching on the ghunnas, or was it something that just came naturally?
So I think initially what I used to do was, as you know, when you start learning a rule first, you get very
Yeah.
conscious of it. So I was concerned about how long I would have to apply the ghunna for at
Mm.
Sudais speed.
Yeah.
So I would stay on the ghunna for a long time. So for example, I'd say ammayata. So it would be an exaggerated
Yeah.
pause or on the ghunna. And then I learned that the pause on the ghunna depends on your speed.
Mm.
And if you're reciting faster, then the pause has to be relatively
Yeah.
the stress on the ghunna has to be relatively shorter. So that came with time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think with Sudesi's speed. And by the way, this tune that I recited is pretty much exactly how that tape. You know, I was talking about those audio. Not exact. It's really the same as from that time.
All those years ago. How many years now? Am I showing your age? No.
You know, you actually should. No, this could be more than 15 years ago, easily.
Wow. Wow.
But subhanallah, this tune is exactly as per. So I'm actually copying how he has done the ghunnas.
Okay.
Sudais. So
It's very interesting here. So 15 years, and still you recited it like to the T, as per what you remember listening to it.
yes,
Now, and you solely put that down to listening, as opposed to just reciting it and trying to copy.
yeah. Look, I think everyone would have a strength. So some people
Yeah.
would be, more visually strength. They would be more strong looking at the
Mm,
Quran. But for myself, I thought that the tunes would really stick.
mm,
So even that Surah Dukhan that we recited again over 15 years ago,
yeah.
um, I can probably recite it exactly the same way that it was recited, same exact that Sudais, just because of the listening.
Yeah.
So that's why I really, even in the madrasas here with the boys, I would tell them to keep listening to that surah, especially in the beginning when you want to form that template of a tune. A lot of them ask, how do you come up with a tune?
Yeah.
So as you rightly said, you listen to different reciters and then you come up with your own.
Mm.
But in the beginning, just keep listening to one particular reciter, try and copy that recitation, and then take it and build from there.
Ahsanti. Brother Muhammad Abbas, thank you so much for sharing your story and for inspiring us with your recitation and the advice that you've given us. Inshallah, we can all go on to have that relationship with the Quran as you have. Um, so
Thank
please remember us in your du'as,
you.
and
Thank you.
inshallah we can keep in touch.
Ahsan, Imani, thank you for having me. And Ahsan, inshallah, Allah gives you more tawfiq to continue the good work that you're doing.
Amin, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.